Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
When we receive email in our inbox, the very first question that comes to mind is this email for me? Personalization can definitely help make a difference here, but does that really work? Does more personalization actually lead to more replies? And if so, is there a way of doing it at scale? We'll answer all those questions and even more as we dive into the data behind over 75 million emails sent with QuickMail this year. And because it's a massive cast, we cut it in two. So this is part one. Today, Jack, I want to talk about something interesting. You've done a guest blog post for QuickMail, and it's about personalization. And I know you're very strong on that. I figured out maybe we could talk about the importance of personalization into this cast.
Let's do it. So why personalize your emails? There's two reasons everybody should be taking extra effort to make sure their cold emails are personal. The first reason is because personalized cold emails get more responses. And we'll take a look at some stats in a moment. But reason two is equally as important, and that is it's great for deliverability. The more you mix up your email copy, the better you look to spam filters. You're just giving yourselves the best chance possible to make sure that your cold email lands in the inbox, not the spam folder.
Isn't that just to get more replies, really?
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, you personalize to get more replies, but also more positive replies. There is a chance that somebody who gets an email that's obviously a template sees through the whole approach here, and they know that they're added to this giant list and getting solicited without a lot of effort and consideration. So you may get a response, but if they see through what you're trying to do, that response could be negative. But people do appreciate when somebody takes time to learn a little bit more about them and make sure that the message is relevant to what they're doing. So your positive response rate should go up as well as your overall response rate.
For me, I've been replying to cold email, very personalized cold email really recently, and led to a call with that person. And the interesting thing is that it was personalized, but not so accurate. So what I mean by that is the first line was, hey, I'm not in Shanghai, but I thought this idea would resonate with you. And I was like, Shanghai, I don't live in Shanghai either, but I did go there like a month ago. So I was kind of like curious by that. And they added lots of other personalization that was really interesting. And I'm going to have a call with this person tomorrow. So I'm going to ask them how they did it and so on, because I'm super curious. But the point is that it helped in my decision process to answer this email. Should I answer or not? And I think that there was a lot of effort that come into this email. So again, maybe the reciprocity kicked in at some point. Like he started researching on me. Let me find out how far his research went. So that's kind of thinking behind it.
And if you're listening to what Jeremy just said and thinking about the opening line that got his attention, referencing a trip to Shanghai that he took, it's easy to have this thought pop in your head that says, wow, that is a lot of effort to do that level of research for everyone on my list. But something that's refreshing and reassuring to think about is you can send fewer emails. You can add fewer prospects to your sequences and still get the same or more positive replies as if you had a very large list getting emailed out. Because if you take a smaller list but do a better job with it, so to speak, you may double or even triple your response rate. So you're not dealing with the same amount of volume per se to get a really great result. If you did a highly personalized sequence where you did spend extra time with each prospect, you likely would not have to prospect as much. You wouldn't have to be doing this work for maybe a normal sized list, hoping to get responses without adding a lot of personalizations.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And before we started this cast, Jack asked me, could you quickly check on QuickMail if there is a correlation between number of personalization in an email or number of custom attributes used in an email versus the actual reply rate. So I went ahead, did some graph. We got 2 graphs to talk about.
One graph is a good graph that tells us personalization is good. The other one, I'm a bit misled by it. I'm not 100% sure how to interpret it.
But hold on a second. What was the hypothesis before we display the graph?
Okay. Adding more merge tags or custom fields or custom attributes in a cold email will increase the reply rate. So an email with 1 merge tag would not perform as well as an email with 3 merge tags.
Well, okay.
And performance is overall reply rate.
So here's what we found. First, we actually created a graph. And by the way, guys, this is huge data in the sense that it's like more than 50,000 data point. I think it's 60-something, 62,000 or something like that, with only email that's been sent to more than 100 prospects just to make it a little bit more accurate and reliable. So, but the first graph basically shows where people are in terms of reply rate versus the number of customization they use in their email. What's interesting is how it's really spread if you don't use a lot of personalization. So you could have basically from 0 to 100 in terms of reply rate. And as you add more and more personalization, it tends to go down in terms of the spread. So you don't find those like 80% reply rate or 60% reply rate, and then it goes down and you don't find anything above 30% reply rate. And it seems like, looking at this graph, it seems like as I add personalization, I get less and less reply. That's the initial thinking that we had when we look at it initially.
It was so disappointing because this was the first graph that we put together and it basically said personalize less. I'm looking at it and it'll be in the show notes so you can take a look at it as well. But it just trends downwards, which at first glance looks very strange. But the second graph, I think, sheds some light on what's really going on here.
Oh, okay, before we go to the second graph. But what really it shows is that there are a lot of people using a small amount of personalization. Therefore, that's normal that you will find from 0 to 100 reply rate because you're probably going to find everything. As you go higher, sure enough, you have less and less people using more and more personalization. So therefore, the range of the reply will vary drastically. And it's kind of normal that it starts from 0 because even if you're using a lot of personalization, you still experiment stuff. And it may well be like, it flops, and that's okay. But here's what we find out on a second graph where we actually determine, can we actually do the average of the reply rate on a per touch basis?
So we looked at the average reply rate for each set of custom attributes used. So we took a look at all of the emails using 0 custom attributes and tallied their average reply rate. We did the same for using, I think, 1. What was the most custom attributes that we looked at, Jeremy?
27. There was one prospect, one user on QuickMail who used 27 different attributes in his cold email.
Don't be alarmed. You definitely do not need to go to that extent. But here's what graph number 2 did show. It showed that the more custom attributes you use in a cold email, the higher reply rate you will get. And this is the kind of stats that obviously we were hoping for, but I do think slicing the data in this way gives a more accurate picture of what's going on. So let's take a look at some numbers here. We're looking at this graph again. It's in the show notes. Definitely take a look at it. But here's what's going on. When we see an upwards trend for the most part between using, say, 2 custom attributes all the way up to 9. 9 had our highest average reply rate per touch, and that was just about 5% of a reply rate for the average of all the emails using 9 custom attributes. And the graph sort of dances a little bit as you go beyond 9 custom attributes, but we're looking at data that says the more you personalize, the better your results will be.
On top of that, in the first plotted graph show you until up to 27, and then the second graph stops at 13 different attributes per email. But the reason for that is as we go more and more attributes per email, there is less and less people doing that. We can pretty much accurately say until 9 different attributes, it's pretty solid in terms of the number we get. But after that, there are less and less people using those attributes. So that's probably why it really varies. It could be that just a couple of agencies are only using 12 touch specifically, and they're not that great. That's why they got like a 3% reply rate. So I wouldn't draw any conclusion besides 9. Obvious that on a trend, we do see like a trend upwards the more customization you put in, which I personally translate by the more effort you put into trying to make your email targeted to that particular person, the better your reply rate you'll got. And we kind of find like 0 or 1 kind of inconclusive because it's usually like either you don't have anything or you have just the first name. And like I say, you got a whole bunch of different people using just 0 or 1 variation.
Here's again like a nice reminder to take the time to personalize your cold emails. The good news is, I mean, you can check your spam folder, your inbox, like most people aren't doing this. And so if you do go the extra mile to personalize your emails, they will stand out and get noticed, which going back to the beginning of the cast has a lot to do with why Jeremy replied to the cold email and ended up, booking a call with them, because they took an extra step to make sure that their cold emails was personalized. So speaking of this, let's talk about the best way to personalize your cold email.
So our conclusion here is that it's probably better to have 5 people reaching out to 5 people, having those 5 people replying, rather than reaching out to 500 people and having 5 people replying. Everything's going to get better because you have a lower volume. So you won't have to deal so much with spam filters, bounces, all those sort of things. But at the same time, the trust you're going to build already bake in the first email is already going to serve the rest of the relationship. So I'll take any day of the week, 5 emails, super personalized, over 500, just barely personalized, even if the same reply rate apply or the same number of people reply in absolute numbers.
If you're not 100% sure whether or not personalization works, just send 2 very, very personalized emails to prospects every day this week. You're going to find out that going above and beyond a typical cold email template works, and hopefully getting responses there will show you that it's definitely a sound investment to add into your campaigns.
And that builds on exactly what we were saying about like the hot list, right? If I tell you today you can only contact 5 people for your cold email campaign, just 5, you're going to be very thorough as to who should I contact to get a reply. But if I tell you, hey, you got 5,000 people, you say, you're going to put everyone in a bucket. But if you spend the effort, like you said, let's try to focus on just getting 5 people. You're going to find out who your best customer potentially are because you're going to know how to talk to them. So it all tied back to the episode 5 that we did about like how to build a hot list of prospects. By doing that, you're going to make yourself a favor. You're going to have like lots of attributes you can personalize on, and then you can scale it to a higher number.
Okay, we're going to cut part 1 here. Stay tuned. Part 2, we're going to dive into how to identify the best custom attributes to use in your email, the fastest way to personalize cold email at scale, and a step-by-step guide for outsourcing your entire cold email personalization effort. You don't want to miss it. See you then. Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high five by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast,
so they can send awesome emails
and make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.